Welcome back to another reading and correcting of Crimson by me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. Today we are doing chapter 32. The bar Alex found was large and airy. It reminded Alex of a commercial space where someone had added tables and a bar at the back. He stood at the entrance for a moment, looking it over, and was surprised at how colorful the people's clothing was. This feels... It was a strong reminder that he wasn't on Delaron 4 anymore. A man stood and headed in his direction. Long tan coat, blue canvas pants, white shirt. Alex stepped out of the way and let him pass, and the orange and black fur on his hand, feet, and face only registered at that moment, along with a muzzle and round ears at the top of his head. Was that it? Alex turned to call out to him and saw the back of his coat was slit in the middle, from his ankle to his waist. He could see a tail of the same orange with intermittent black bands. Alex let him go. Somalians didn't have tails. He wouldn't be able to help him find Tristan. His mood dropped a little again, and even noticing the handful of aliens on the bar wasn't enough to lighten it. On his way to the counter, Alex noticed that some of the humans acted oddly, or at least in manners that felt odd. He passed by a table where 2 men and 2 women were seated, their hands perfectly still and splayed on a table as they talked. On another table, 2 women in stiff robes and shades of red and purple spoke in a hushed tone, pointing to the others in the bar as if they considered them strange. In a corner, a family in drab gray clothes held their children close to them, looking around fearfully. "Can I have a golden hour?" Alex asked the man behind the bar. The barman looked at him and replied in a language that sounded a lot like that of the woman who served him the stew. Alex sniffled aside. Okay. People being different might be a problem if this was what he had to look forward each time he wanted to buy something. He looked at the bottles lined up on the shelf and pointed to the only one he recognized, then handed the question. The display was visible, and Alex peeked. As the man ran it through, he had over 3,000 on it. That was a lot of money. You'd have to ask Will about it. The man handed him the chip and the glass. Alex found a table to enjoy his drink and sipped it, and made a face, or not. Now that all he had to do was look at his drink and avoid the question. What should he do? He had to reach Somalia, but would he risk his integrity to get there? Whatever he had left of it, he remembered Will's telling him that staying on the ship would change him. Alex hadn't believed him. That had been a mistake. He wanted to blame someone for what was happening to him, but no one had forced him on the ship. No one had forced him to coerce that first computer. Yes, the captain had basically twisted his arm that time, but once Alex didn't have any options, he'd looked forward to doing it. He'd had fun fighting with other coercionists. Who did that? Who had fun breaking laws? He knew that answer to that. What would Jack think of him? Alex shuddered as he remembered the dreams of him cheering Alex on as he fought and killed. He drank half the glass and scrunched his face at the taste. But he took his mind off the memory. But Tristan was who Alex would have to deal with. He had to draw Jack out of him, and while he had the Defender to help with that, would it be worth doing if Alex became as much of a monster as Tristan was? Okay. Let's try that. He'd have to draw Jack out of him, and while he had the Defender to help with that, would it be worth doing if Alex became as much of a monster as Tristan was in his hurry to get there? That feels clunky. You have to draw Jack out of him, and while he had the Defender to help. Would it be worth doing if Alex became as much of a monster as Tristan was in his hurry to get there? As Tristan was in his hurry to get there. If Alex feels as he was Feels like this is where the coma belongs. Couldn't he take longer to get to Tristan? Make sure there was enough of Alex left for Jack to care for? He didn't know where he was in relation to Somalia, but he should be able to find a way to get there from here, even if it added years to his trip. Alex brought the glass to his lip and found it was empty. How had he managed to drink that and not realize it? He headed to the bar for a refill. It was probably a bad idea, but he needed help thinking. With his new drink in hand, he turned and almost ran into someone. The only thing preventing him from spilling his glass over the other shirt was that the man had caught his hand. Careful there, buddy. Sorry, Alex replied. He had a flash of memory of turning with a drink in hand, running into Jack, and apologizing. This man wasn't Jack. He was human and bald, a head shorter than Alex, with pale skin and warm clothing. It's okay. The man looked Alex up and down, still holding his hand. Say, you speak the same language as me. Mind if we share a table? The man gently squeezed Alex's hand. Alex thought back. And yes, the man was right. Everyone here seemed to speak a language Alex didn't understand. He hadn't paid attention, letting the conversations flow over him. Alex thought about turning the man down, but there was something about him that felt comforting. His smile was inviting. Sure, why not? He'd be able to get back to his thinking once they were done with their drinks. I am Olian, the man said before pointing to a bottle and paying for his drink. I haven't seen you before. What brings you to this pleasant little place? Alex used the time to decide how to handle this. Couldn't be careless. Crimson, he finally answered, just passing through, and guided Ollie into his table. What about you? The man sat, then looked at his hand. Oh, I've been here for a while now. Wasn't the plan. I was on a ship and got in a scuffle. Got detained and the ship left without me. I didn't think passenger ships could do that. Aren't there rules about all the passengers needing to be on board before they leave? And then shrugged. Alex thought about giving him money to help him out. He had more than he needed. He even started to reach for his pocket when he got an odd sensation about the situation. There hadn't been any money involved, but the bumping into someone, the not quite sob story, the offering of help, those were almost the exact repeat of what had happened with Jack. Changed the motion to scratching his chest and sipped his drink, watching the man not watching. No luck leaving? Was it just being paranoid? Had Anders turned him into someone who didn't trust people's goodness anymore? Olian shook his head. This place doesn't get a lot of ship, and those that do dock, well, I don't know that I'd want to travel on them, if you know what I mean. Alex nodded. His unease growing. When the man reached over and placed a hand on Alex's, he had to resist the urge to pull it away. I'm just hoping to survive until someone trustworthy can take me away from this place. Jack hadn't been this overt with his approach. He'd been at ease with the situation, much more believable as someone in trouble. Alex had been the one to make all the first moves, except he hadn't. Tristan had manipulated him into making them, into being the one to make the offer of assistance. Didn't you say the ships here aren't trustworthy? Alien gave him a sweet smile. I get a good feeling from you. Alex forced himself to return the smile. He interlaced his fingers with Olian's, then pushed him a hand up and back, bending the man's wrist until he grimaced. Alex wasn't falling for this trick twice. You're hurting me, Olian hissed, but kept his voice low. He glanced around to see if anyone was paying attention to them. The action confirmed Alex's suspicion. He didn't care if they attracted gazes, but no one was looking their way. Who are you? I told you you're not really stranded here, are you? Of course Alex bent the wrist back some more and then clamped his mouth shut, eyes closed in pain. Okay, he whispered. I got the message. I'm sorry I tried to con you. Alex relieved the pressure, but didn't let go. Look, just let me go. I'll get out of here. I won't bother you again, I promise. Now that he wasn't in pain, the man's demeanor had changed. He wasn't meek and inane. He was carefully looking at Alex and around, making sure he was safe. How badly do you need the money? Alex asked. Alien's surprise made it difficult for him to find the words. I need it. Are you willing to work for it? It depends. The man studied Alex. How much are we talking about here? 3,000? The man's eyes went wide for a moment, then he had control of himself. What do you expect me to do? Answer some questions. That's it? Questions? You don't expect me to kill anyone? Alex shook his head, and the next word slipped out before he could stop it. If I wanted that, I could do it myself. The man paled a little. When he regained his color, he nodded to their hands. Well, look, if you're going to pay me, you don't need the torture. Alex let go of him and sipped his drink. Before we start, can I ask you something? The man rubbed his wrist. Alex nodded. You've been conned before, right? That's how you saw through me, right? Alex nodded. That was an understatement. Olean took a long sip from his glass. Okay, ask away. How did you pick me? Of everyone here, what told you I might be a target? Edmund shrugged. I didn't pick you here. I've been following you since you left your ship. You were distracted, lost in your head, maybe a little depressed. Followed you through the center, waiting for the right time. And when you came here, I knew you'd be receptive. I figured that you'd be more inclined to help me out to avoid thinking about your own problems. Didn't you take a risk when you didn't let go of my hand? What risk? Allian smiled. At worst, you'd have said you weren't interested. I'd have let go, but I knew you wouldn't mind. I watched you check the bar out. Your gaze slid over the woman, but you lingered on the man. Alex frowned, trying to remember if he'd done that. Maybe I was just checking out who was a threat. You're not a fighter. You're too at ease. You wouldn't have overlooked the woman if you were. Alex nodded. I know it was certainly enough of a threat to his well-being when she put up with it, when she put her mind to it. Out of curiosity, if I hadn't stopped you, what would have happened next? One sipped his drink and leaned forward. Depends on what you needed. Right now, I'm thinking companionship, but that's just based on a little from when you had your guard down. I would also have picked up more as we spoke, adjusting my action to that, slowly becoming the person you needed. We'd have become comfortable, maybe we'd have sex. Alex shook his head. Or not. But at some point, I'd have mentioned I needed money and offered to help me out. Just like that. And then shrugged. People are predictable. Alex nodded. So you don't plan who you'll be ahead of time? I can't. Until I know you, I can't know who you'll respond to. Alex didn't think Tristan had made things up as on the go. Based on everything he'd read, the alien was technologically savvy. Alex's file would have had everything Tristan needed to plan ahead. Alex's psychological profile was on file from the evaluation he'd taken when he was hired by Luminex. Just that would have everything Tristan needed to manipulate him. Out of curiosity, how long could you pull this off? What do you mean? How long could you be this person I needed? How long could you draw it out if, for some reason, what you wanted from me wasn't readily available? I don't know. I mostly work on the short term, since my marks tend to have to get back to the ship. But I guess I could do it for as long as needed. Who I'd have to be is someone I really didn't like playing. So, charming me for months, acting like you're in love with me? Elian studied Alex for a moment. Yeah, I can do that. He paused as he finished his drink. Shit, is that what happened to you? Alex didn't respond, but the man winced. No wonder you were ready to rip my hand off. How about if I'm not around? Well, if you're not here, I don't have to worry about how I act. But when I come back, could you pick up where we left? How long are we talking about here? Alex shrugged. A year? Maybe more? Am I waiting for you to come back? Like, is this a business trip or something? No, as far as you know, I'm gone. When we run into each other again, it isn't planned. Well, I don't know. I mean, if we've been together for a while before that, I might be able to remember the gist of what we had, but the whole thing? Probably not. I'd miss some details here and there. What do you mean by forgetting details? You get that what I do is just an act, right? Once you're gone, I go back to who I was, so I can deal with my own stuff. Probably find another mark, but the more time passes, the tougher it is going to be for me to remember you and who I was for you. Alex stiffened. Jack had been an act? Of course it would be. Of course yeah. course he had. Even in his dream, even his dreams told that over and over. He knew he'd have to draw him out of Tristan. So how hadn't he realized that part? Was he so obsessed with what he couldn't see? No, was he so obsessed that he couldn't see it? But he couldn't have just been that. A monster like Tristan couldn't know how to love. He'd been over that before more than once. What Olean told him confirmed that time was a factor. If he wanted Jack back, he couldn't let Tristan forget him. How long had it been now, objectively? Years? No, not that long. Tristan had to reach Somalia, same as Alex. Each stop Alex made widened the gap, but it had only been 6 months, 7 at most, since he lost Jack. So that couldn't be more than a year apart. But each second's delay increased the time difference between them. How long did he have until Tristan forgot Jack completely? He stood and flicked a creature to Olean. We're done. We're done? The man asked. We are, Alex thought. He had to go talk to the captain. And this concludes chapter 32 of Crimson. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next one is going to be, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the whole story, it, along with the other books in the series, are available in all major e-retailers. If you want to watch me do this live, it's on Twitch every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. If you want to support me, it's on my Patreon, where you can also have access to everything I've written. All the links are in the note. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.